Welcome to the Owl Hoot podcast with me, Caroline Norbury. This is a show for any person interested in the environment and sustainability. I arrived at a point in my own life where I wanted to know more about the state of our planet and how I can play my part, albeit small, in mitigating climate change, reducing pollution and supporting biodiversity. I decided that chatting to others who are already doing something might be a good place to start. So each episode will feature a different guest telling their stories in and around an environmental activity that will perhaps provide you with ideas that you can incorporate into your own life. Enjoy listening and let me know if you have a topic you'd like to hear more about on the podcast, and I'll do my best to address it. In this episode, we take a look at borrowing toys through my chat with Ann-Marie McMillan, manager and founder of the Derbyshire Toy Libraries. I've been lucky enough to know Ann-Marie for over 20 years when she started up the Crich Millennium Toy Library and needed some extra help getting it up and running. Since that time, Ann-Marie has worked tirelessly to provide parents and carers with the opportunity to access a vast range of toys that's really helpful in their child's development, and also gives them the opportunity to find out what their child likes, dislikes, what they most engage with in terms of these toys. And on the back of this, there is real potential to reduce toy consumption and plastic pollution. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into the conversation and welcome Ann-Marie to the podcast.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with a bit of background, your life prior to the toy library, because you weren't always involved in this particular type of area. So can you give me a bit of what life was like before your toy library days?
Pre-toy library, I was a building services engineer for a local construction company, but got made redundant, and I found out I was pregnant at the same time with my daughter Phoebe. I felt at the time I was a bit cut off in my prime because I did envisage it to be a lifelong career and was very excited about it. So took time out, had Phoebe, and utilised Crich Medical Practice baby clinic and met up with similar mums like yourself, Caroline, and there was a toddler group, and bounded around was the idea of getting together more, and the idea of a toy library.
Was it that you had the need for it at the time, or did you think, oh, there's a requirement here in the community that needs filling and I can do that? What was your motivation?
Perhaps initially, I think it was a big gaping hole in me because I felt I just lost my purpose. Because I've always been driven. So I took the opportunity when Phoebe started getting a little older, and there were lots of opportunities for adult education classes, and so I didn't know where my career was going to take me. So I took the opportunity of learning additional skills and computer programs and other skills. And there was also creche facilities as well around that time. So I was a bit of a course junkie. I've always been into recycling and whatever, and green. So I'd already formed that company, developed a recycling program for the construction company, and just looked to progress from there. But us mums together, we just seemed to click, and there was a need I felt for the service in Crich. It was highlighted originally by Anne Luddit and Julie White, who were two of the health visitors at the time, as there was a similar service going on in Belper. And so myself and some of the other mums, we volunteered at Belper and had a look at what we thought the pros and cons of it were, and how we would adapt it for a different area of Crich, because it was quite different to Belper. We thought, if we're going to do this, we want to access funds and whatever. So it was quite a short turnaround. I think we started planning in the November. Melanie Allen, she was originally taking the lead and moving it forward. But then she was quite ill with her second child, so she rolled up on my doorstep with a plastic bag of how-tos starter pack from the National Association of Toy and Leisure Libraries, and that was it really. So we set a programme and full speed ahead with the aid of the National Association. We thought we'd put some proper training in place, but they wanted us to go to, like they said, I contacted them, they said, oh, we only run training in London. And I said, well, we're all young mums with babies. That's really not possible for us. So we were quite trailblazers, because we really were instigated how the National Association would then develop their training programme of sending their trainers around the country. So they said, well, basically, if you can get enough people to attend, we'll run introduction to toy library training. And so they gave us a printout of the members in and around Derbyshire and Derby City, and we invited them to the Crouch-Cleveland Centre.
How easy was it then to take on their knowledge on what they'd already been doing elsewhere and get Crouch up and running?
Actually, that wasn't too bad, getting it up and running, because we already had very enthusiastic health visitors, and we had the toddler group at the Crouch-Cleveland Centre, and we just basically chose the skills of the different people, like Jackie. She worked for Barclays Bank, treasurer. Someone else designed, Debbie Crook, she had a computer company, designed websites, etc. So we put her into that genre, and really, because there wasn't that many playgroups and access to play in, because Crouch is quite isolated. The buses are very few and far between. That everyone was very engaged and wanting to get on board. We decided quite soon if we're going to go for it, to register as a charity, because that would allow us as a constituted group as well to access greater funds, and that we did that as sort of a fast track. So that took less than 6 months, which was quite good. And at the point of launching, I think we applied for various grants from very small pots, helped by Derbyshire Foundation and Amber Valley CVS, to the tune of about £4,000, which was way above, when you think 21 years ago, that was a considerable sum of money.
For sure.
But we also did some very simple things as well. I went through the Yellow Pages, local Yellow Pages, and basically highlighted all the local companies, and we approached them with a letter of either donating money or goods that would be useful to us in the facilitating the toy library. And one of the most useful things was the local garage gave us a load of folding plastic boxes, which we're still using today. But it was quite funny as well. Certain individuals, when we did approach them, thinking that we would get quite significant levels of funding, I remember one local business, we got £5, and someone we didn't know from Adam gave us £100. So, but definitely going for that targeted local approach was very successful, and it kept people engaged. And we also sought to get a figurehead as in the form of a patron, and we were very lucky to basically have Simon Groom, who's the former Blue Peter presenter who lived locally in Dethick, still does, lives in Dethick, and he was very enthusiastic, came along to our launch in May, and he was be supportive with his wife Julie to come along to various events through the time he was our patron.
And how important is it to have a visible patron like that to a charity like the Toy Library?
I think it is important to have a visible one, because it's good to show other people in the wider field of your charity that you can attract the attention and support of a well-known person. It doesn't have to be a celebrity necessarily, just somebody who, or it could be from business, or who is supported of your charity. After Simon stood down because of his commitments, we had a meeting to discuss who we could attract, and what we didn't realise, one of our members coming along to the toy library sessions with her daughter was James Lewis's, the local auctioneer from Bamford's, but he was also increasingly appearing on TV with antiques and whatever. So he was and he's quite a raconteur character, and he's also in recent years done a 24-hour Guinness Book of Record auctions, and we were his chosen charities, and we've had done evening with events with James too as fundraisers as well.
You mentioned earlier that, in fact, you'd already got into green ways of working and living when you were at your previous employer. Did you see the toy library then through those eyes? Did you think, oh, this is something good because people will buy less toys? Or was it largely about development, or maybe both?
I think it was more at the time sort of community development, because I could see that was lacking at the time, but also saw having good quality toys that for their longevity, sustainability as well, and people were very pleased at that time to be able to access the toys that they couldn't afford. Or we also around that time, because of being employed, I missed that bit, didn't I? Through setting up Crich, I then applied to the National Association of Toy and Leisure Libraries as an outreach worker for Derbyshire to develop toy libraries and support existing. So that tied in very well with Crich. So the National Association put together the Good Toy Guide, which various settings tried and tested toys accordingly, and these were sought at the annual toy fair in London, Excel. So we had a lot of resources that weren't even in the shops, so that brought in a lot of attention to the group as well, and brought people from further afield than Crich as well.
And in terms of where you went from there, because you're now heading up the Derbyshire Toy Libraries, when did you look to think of this, to sort of go more outward with your ideas?
Well, what happened was we started with the development role of the outreach worker, working with other toy libraries in Derbyshire. Then I was being contacted when our funding got cut, and there was just Crich left. That some of the other toy libraries started to struggle, so we actually were invited to take them over. So I think the first one we took over was Belper, and which was quite handy because that was on our doorstep. Then we took over Wirksworth, Matlock, and we took on a group in Kilburn as well. So we then changed the name we had changed the name already from Crich Millennium to just Crich Toy Library. And then as we took over these other ones, we thought, we'll call them the Crich family of toy libraries, but that really didn't work. And what we thought we would be looking at was a more Derbyshire approach. So we thought, why not go to be Derbyshire Toy Libraries? But why it was libraries rather than toy library, there were other independent toy libraries operating, so we thought they would sort of join us and we would become the overarching charity. But in how it is now, we are really in the Shire, we are the only one, so
right.
Quite often we're referred to as Derbyshire Toy Library.
So what's the biggest challenge then of keeping a toy library going?
Having systems in place. What's been having the COVID and having all our stay and plays stopped, because that's how we historically hired toys, through our stay and play sessions. We used to have, with just having Crich, we just had a few catalogues, because that's all the toys we had at one venue. But when we started taking over all these other groups and their resources as well, we couldn't possibly have a catalogue with all those toys. So for a number of years we've operated without any visuals, and it was an issue that kept getting flagged up time and time again. We had a website with a limited number of toys and resources on, but having the finance to keep up with the technology was also an issue. But having the stay and plays, they could see the toys, so that's how we sort of bumbled along. But with we've accumulated over the years somewhere in the over 1,000. In fact, we don't know how many toys we have, but it's well in excess of 1,000. But over this past 12 months, we have done a significant cull. In fact, it's the past 2 years we started with the help of Lindsay Willis, a local one of our members, and we've done a significant cull, and we've been selling off to raise funds for the charity, and cascading toys to other charities as well, because we always get offers of donations as well. So that's coming into our core modus of operandi as well, and being the green card that when they're donated, they either come into the toy library and we incorporate them into our stock. We use them as spares or going into themed packs. We have a selling and fundraising group page, so we use that quite a lot. But more recently, and particularly through lockdown, we've been networking with other local charities like the Food Bank, TOGS, and another local charity. And so we've cascaded out and put in development age stage packs together and gifted those. So really the only thing going to landfill is broken toys. So nothing really goes to waste, and we just are in the process of formalising that into a more process.
That must be super rewarding to know that not only are your toys getting well used in the community, but that you've got a place, that you've got ways of making sure they don't just get discarded largely, which is no mean feat, is it? Trying to keep them in circulation some way or somehow.
Well, that's right. And having the database where we can track them, that's what we're working on at the moment. We've had funding from the community fund from the lottery, so that will be fantastic when that's finished. But we're also trying to avoid fads and toys of poor quality. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, I think the average child at Christmas was spent on them in the region of £400, and most of those toys they're by Boxing Day. They could even be discarded or bored of. So it's like you said earlier on in the interview, as the conversation, that choosing toys that meet the needs of that child. And one of our new projects, which we hope will reduce greatly in landfill as well, is called our Purposeful Play Packs. So we're looking for families to sign up from birth or even whilst they're pregnant, and we will, on a 3-monthly rotation, provide them with a pack of resources and support notes and a forum, whether it's going to be a WhatsApp group or Facebook forum, to support new parents or parents generally for that age stage of development, and then rotating them on. And we've just had funding for a pilot of that, and we're very excited, and we're just developing the sub-brand for that. And we plan that health professionals and other charities will be able to buy in that service for families in need. We do have a self-referral and a other charity or organisational referral system for families in need, and where we'll provide free toy hire or membership. It is very low key, so it's not made obvious which of our families are receiving that service. And particularly through lockdown and families being furloughed, we have been supporting a wide range. Some that have just been quite affluent in the past, and just everything's dried up, and they're finding them in quite a sticky situations. And some of the arguments have been about are we still relevant through lockdown? Should we still be running? Our last day and play was the 16th of March last year, and click and collect started with a phone call from a parent wanting resources, really realising they hadn't even prepared for the lockdown and were worried how they were going to support their child, because they didn't really have many toys at home, because their child Monday to Friday was in a nursery. And so that's how it started. Then that weekend, we had so many inquiries through the social media and website. So we just started from home, and the resources that we had ready for Belp Goes Green in the May, to hire those out, and they'd gone. And then after that time, I needed to do weekly checks at Belp Community Hall because I was chair. And as part of that, I thought I would take the opportunity of putting out extra toys for the requests from the hall. And then Boris said, if you can't work from home, choose somewhere else. You'll have to go to your place of work. So then Belper Community Hall basically became my home for 7 days a week at one point, and we took the opportunity. Well, it was just myself running it. This click and collect scheme. I got permission from the trustees, and it was good because it was actually keeping the hall safe and secure because something was going on. And we had the opportunity then to pull toys from our other venues that we had run stay and plays, and my colleague Lindsay jumped on board in September, and that's when the real work of culling everything, and we had lottery funding to start the database and have online memberships, and that was a real game changer because being able to join easily. We now have 200 members since September, which has been fantastic.
It would have been very easy to just go, oh, this is how we've operated, this is our model. We'll just wait until we're back up and running. But you've taken quite a difficult situation and you've adapted to it, and you've changed systems and processes and evolved how the library works in order to keep that going. And if anything, it sounds like you've strengthened the community for borrowing toys from the library.
I think one of the real worries in the early days was the criticism we would come under for under the scrutiny for cleaning the toys and resources. So I took the time to photograph the process and what we were doing and what products we were using and how we were dismantling toys and really being very thorough. And those went online, and those almost went viral. And we've only had only a couple of negative comments through that time. Nearly 12 months now, and it's been staggering.
And it sounds like some of the things that you've put in place that you'll obviously keep, like online, being able to enroll people, keep volunteers, and keep borrowers through the online system. Even when you go back to stay and play, presumably that's something you will hope to go back to.
Yeah, we will hopefully when we've got all the protocols and everything in place, we'll look to, and the data's looking good, to starting the stay and plays back gradually through later on in the year. So yeah, we're very much looking forward to, because we have missed that face-to-face engagement. Although we've the click and let toys have been handed over outside the building. No families have come in at all. And the stay and plays were very much a very social activity, and we had volunteers, a lot of meet and greeters, and it was quite a lifeline to families because their families lived far away as well. And we very much missed as well. We have another project called Young at Heart, which we ran intergenerational stay and plays in the local care settings. So it was very much like a stay and play with families can bring their babies to school-age children coming in and engaging with the residents. So we've had to move online for that since September, and we've been doing weekly Zooms, but that's been very very beneficial to both parties, because I think not just the elderly felt isolated, like the families felt isolated too.
What's clear and coming through is that there are these two strands of the green side of things, being more environmental or being as good as you can in terms of sustainability, and also this community bringing people together, and benefiting different parts of the community. Which lens do you tend to focus on, or is it just that the two strands run together?
I think the two strands run together because that is all our community. From, we say we're from birth to 105, which is the eldest resident in the care home where we deliver the intergenerational. So our mantra for the toy library that we promote to families is that well-known quote by George Bernard Shaw. He said, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing."
How fabulous. Yeah. What was your highlight within your world of the toy library? Have you had sort of standout moments that you'd like to share?
I'd love to. I was very excited to have been invited 2 years ago. It was the centenary of the National Volunteer Organisation, and I had an email to invite me to Windsor Castle to meet the Queen, who was the patron, and that was an amazing experience.
How fabulous!
And I was presented to the Queen, and we were then chosen by the NCVO because it tied into the charity volunteer month. So our chair, Lavinia Smith, we wrote a two-way blog and had various articles shared throughout nationally through that time. So we were very proud of ourselves then, but we were used as to highlight that.
Well, yeah, justifiably, you should have been proud, for sure.
And more recently as well, the International Toy Library Association, they picked up on our doing the click and collect from March. So, and we also had acknowledgement for that as well. So it's nice to be recognised by those professionals and peers.
For sure. And of other do you know if other toy libraries in other communities have taken that approach, the click and collect?
There are a few. We network with the Smart Play Network in Scotland, which were formerly the Scottish office of the National Association before it went into administration. And we also network with toy libraries in Milton Keynes and the Merry-Go-Round Toy Library in Exeter. Sadly, the Milton Keynes Toy Library, which was linked to the Preschool Learning Alliance, they took the decision in March that it was too risky to run toy library sessions or toy loan, and through that they have actually folded, whereas we took the chance and put the systems in place and the health and safety, and as you said earlier, it's been a great success for us, and with the 1,000 toys.
It's a great achievement, Anne-Marie. Outside of the toy library, I know that you also engage in other sort of green activities, or your way of life is trying to think about being a sort of conscious consumer and what you do with your waste. Can you share a little bit about the sorts of things that you do outside of the toy library that contribute to sustainability?
Yeah, I think we're very lucky in Belper to have a transition group, which is all about reducing waste and how we live our lives. Transition Belper run annual festivals called Belper Goes Green at the local rugby club, and we would provide a pop-up play zone, and just networking with other users and the committee with that was quite an eye-opening, and see how I thought I was quite green, but I could go further, and it's what I wanted to strive for. And we have also another person, Sue, who's influenced a lot of people locally, and she developed Shock Sue Sustainables for refills and sustainable living. So with those people, I was striving to have reduce the plastic and waste within our family, but through lockdown that has been a problem because of having to go back to Amazon and other things when other shops and things weren't available. So it's a mindset as well, because I was trying so hard for and working it all out, working through basically a bit of a tick list that we use environmental reuse. We use sustainable liquids in our domestic cleaning, washing up liquid, things like that. We'd already gone through who gives a crap getting that toilet paper, so we missed out on that dilemma of everyone clearing the supermarkets, so a little bit of gloating there, and just some common sense, going back to the roots of bread shops in Christchurch. We've got a fantastic bread shop called The Loaf, and they deliver. The local veg shop through the pandemic has delivered, and it's really going back to basics, that you don't have to go to supermarkets. There is a different way of living. And part of it was also brought on because my dad is on palliative care, so in being in a bubble, I didn't want to put ourselves at risk going to such places as well.
Sure. So I'm gonna bring our conversation to a close, and the last two questions I'd like to ask you. One of them is, okay, what would you recommend? What would be your top tip to other people if they were starting out on their sustainability journey? And it may be related to the toy library. What would you recommend?
Well, I think if they've got planning a family or have children, definitely join a toy library. And avoid those. If people aren't buying all these faddy toys and the cheap toys, then the manufacturers will have to look elsewhere or look at manufacturing more environmentally friendly. And just looking at the simple things, I don't think you should put too much pressure on yourself, which I think I did probably looking back. But just going for the quick fixes and the easy things and making it a journey. And because I don't think you really leave the journey, and just see how. I think the programs as well. I mean, David Attenborough, it's just so shocking how you've seen the results of seeing the waste in the seas, and looking at Bali and whatever, and you think of these amazing blue seas, and then suddenly, there's bottles, crisp packets, and all sorts of waste, and to think that. The other part is that we think we're being great by putting everything in that recycling bin, and now the powers that be aren't recycling it, they're shipping it off to third world countries, and I think that is a travesty. So, but if everyone makes a little effort, then the world will be a better place.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, that you've got to be kind to yourself and do the best that you can. Is the message I'm getting from you. And final question then. So 2050 is going to be quite a significant target point, it would seem. How do you envisage the world then?
I mean, I suppose people would say that everything's going more digital, but I still think even then there'll be a part for, traditional types of play, and how we educate parents and children, because it is very much learning through play. And I suppose with all the cars and changing over to electric and fewer, hoping that we've learnt the lessons of through lockdown and the impact on the environment, that we can make these changes, and it will be better because there is no plan B.
Yes, we have to strive forward, that's for sure, and remain optimistic and do our bit. Right, it's been marvellous. Thank you very much for taking the time out to share your experiences of the toy library and in and around that. So thanks for being on this episode and on our podcast.
Thank you, Caroline. Most appreciated. And I should really say something. It's really a team effort. It's not just me.
Yes, you've definitely that has come across when you've talked about all the different people that you've drawn on. So that definitely has come across. So thanks again. Thanks to Ann-Marie for sharing her experiences of running a toy library and giving us an insight into a charity organisation that benefits both the community and the environment. You can find more about the Derbyshire Toy Libraries through the link in the show notes on my podcast page at www.theowlhoot.com/podcast. I'd also like to thank Jeremy Jones for providing the music and you for listening. If you want to hear more stories of people doing great things that positively impact our environment, then please do subscribe, rate and review through your podcast app. And why not share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it? Next time, you can look forward to hearing Dave Goulson, author of the popular science book on bumblebees, A Sting in the Tail, and most recently, The Garden Jungle. Until next time, bye for now.